Hello, and welcome once again to the Dental Marketing Mastery Series. This podcast is brought to you by dentalwebcontent.com and New Patients Incorporated. I'm Howie Horrocks, the founder of New Patients Incorporated. Along with me once again is my friend and partner and the president of New Patients Incorporated, Mark Dilatush. Hello, Mark. How are you doing today?
Hello, Howie. How are you doing?
I'm doing just fine.
Good.
Hey, regarding today's topic, I'm thinking, I remember back a couple years ago, we did a talk at Dental Town, and you got on the subject of recare and how this kind of messes up practices right and left. And I thought it'd be kind of nice if, we could revisit that topic. And because I think it's important, a lot of practices do it wrong, as it turns out. And I think everybody would benefit from hearing your views on that. What do you think?
Well, I think everybody would benefit from buying me 3 or 4 drinks, then hearing me talk.
Okay, pretend like I just brought you those
Okay, all
drinks.
right. So
You're unplugged now.
okay, I'm unplugged. All right. This is another topic that man, I can't tell you. Well, let me and it's not like you don't know this, Howie. I know you have run into dentists who have called us and said, "Hey, I want to market my practice because my hygiene is slow."
Yeah.
Right? How many times have we heard that? Like 37 dozen times, right?
Yep.
Okay, and we've heard from the dentist, we keep getting missed appointments. So I want to market and I need whatever, 150 new patients a month, in a single doctor practice. That's been around
Right.
for 20 years. How many times have we heard that story?
Yeah. I can hear their back door swinging wide open now.
Exactly. So this isn't like, this isn't Mark's pet peeve. This is anyone who studied the business analytics in dentistry for years pet peeve. It has to be. To me, it's like a moral obligation to share the insanity that has been plaguing dentistry. And sometimes I think I feel a little bit reserved, which is hard to believe, but sometimes I feel reserved to really speak out about it because, we get referrals from 50 management consultants out there, and even some of them don't understand why I rail um, against the black plague that is pre-appointing 100% of your existing patients. So the black plague of dentistry can be defined as a dental office who pre-appoints everyone in their hygiene. When I say everyone, let's say anything over 90%. Just using math, just plain simple arithmetic will tell you that if you continue to pre-appoint 100% of your hygiene, your recare visits, as the practice is growing, just math will tell you that your schedule is going to get booked out because you don't have the capacity now, you don't have the hygienist or the hours now to perform the work on this fantasy that you're building out into the future. Now, before I go too much further, I will tell you why dental offices love to pre-appoint 100% of their patients 6 months in advance. The reason dental practices love to do it is because it's easy. That's the only reason anyone with any business background in any business would ever reserve 100% of their time out into the future based on a fantasy, because it's easy. So hopefully we have some followers now on our podcast, and hopefully they've gotten to know me. And maybe out of 100 people listening to this, what do you think, Howie? You think 10 or 20 of them are wincing right now?
Yeah.
Okay, so here's the basic math behind it. Let's say you have 2,000, I'm going to call them active patients. And 2,000 active patients come in twice a year for recare, once every 6 months. So let's just go into fantasy here for a little while. Let's say your dental practice in the history of dentistry has the best true recare compliance on the planet, in the universe. Nobody's better than you. So your true compliance is 70%. Now, when I say true compliance, what that means is that the patient pre-scheduled and they actually came in on exactly the day at exactly the time that they pre-scheduled 6 months ago. That's what true compliance is. Okay. So let's say that you actually own that dental practice that has the best performance in the galaxy. So you have 2,000 hygiene patients. They need 4,000 appointments for the year. So, okay, so that's 70% are compliant. But what about the other 30? What's 30% of 2,000? 30% of 2,000 is, what is that, 600? And if they're coming in twice during the year, it's not really 600, it's more like 1,200. Okay. So you have, now remember, this is if you have the best dental practice in the entire galaxy, which nobody on this call, nobody listening to this podcast has. Okay. But let's just pretend. So now you have 1,200 people that you have to sift through on a relatively continual basis, follow up with, get on the phone with, email with, text with, smoke signal with, whatever, letter with, postcard with, whatever other ways that you reach out to your existing hygiene patients to get them to come in. You have to do that 1,200 times. Now, here's what normally happens. And I bet I'm going to get some winces after I say the following. Here's what happens. You pre-appoint through, let's say, years 1 through 7 or 8, until hygiene looks incredibly full. I mean, how proud to look at your schedule and say to yourself, well, dang, I got no room for like 5 months. Howie, what's the number one death nail with new patients coming in? If they come through hygiene and the hygiene book is booked out 4 or 5 months, what's the fastest way to ruin your marketing?
Well, what do we call that? The magic number 8?
Yes, the magic number 8. If you can't get them in within 8 work days, you are wasting your money. Okay,
You're
so
going to lose them.
you're going to
You're
lose
going
them.
to lose them.
So one of the bad things that pre-appointing everyone does is it gives first of all, it gives a false sense of security to the dentist. Now, most dentists will look at that and puff their chest out and say, wow, I'm popular, people like me. They'll use that as a measurement of success. And what we're saying is, no, it's a measurement of death. Okay, that's basically what we're saying. Okay, so your schedule goes out, your chest comes out, you feel really good about a bad thing, so you keep perpetuating it. So what happens is the doctor kind of panics and says, well, geez, I have one hygienist now, her name is Mary. Mary can't possibly, I mean, look how far booked in the future Mary is. I have to go get a second hygienist. So I'm going to go get whatever, Amy. Okay, so now Amy comes into the practice. So now Amy is going to start to consume some of those 70% of real appointments, and the other 30% somebody in the office has to fill for Amy's book. Well, the reality is that those 30% are fantasy. So the doctor is staffing hygiene based on a visual look at a fantasy. And what's real is that about, at best, believe me, nobody on this listening to this podcast has a real compliance of 70%. But at best, 1,200 of those appointments in that appointment book you're looking at are a joke. They're not going to be there. They're going to be gone. Okay. Then the dentist goes out and gets another hygienist. So now they have two hygienists working. And all of a sudden, it's kind of amazing. The doctor, all of a sudden, there's going to be like a missed hygiene appointment each day, 1.5 each day, 2 each day. So the doctor goes out and says, well, man, we need this, poor Gail up at the front desk. She can't handle everything and follow up with my burgeoning hygiene demand. So let's go out and hire Heather. Okay, so Heather comes in. Now remember this name Heather, because this Heather used to be a really good possible employee until you put her in this position. If you want to ruin an employee in dentistry, put them in the hygiene coordinator position in an office that pre-appoints 100% of their recare. And here's why. So you go hire Heather. Now remember, we hired another hygienist and we hired a person to administrate hygiene. So what's happening to the doctor's overhead? Is it going up or down? It's going up. Okay, and then still, we're not improving anything. There's no more human beings coming into the practice yet. You're just looking at a fantasy and you're staffing for it. That's all you're doing. And then you're feeling missed appointments. And then you're hiring admin, either a new one or you're taking time away from an existing one and putting them on the admin of your hygiene department. Now, let's go back to the 1,200 people who are fantasies. You know how long it takes to call, text, email, postcard, whatever you do multiple times to 1,200 people? Now that 1,200 only stays 1,200 if your practice closes the door after the first year. What happens to that 1,200 number? Does it go up or down? It goes up, and it goes up exponentially. So poor Heather. She's probably in her mid-20s, early 30s. You're probably paying her 18, 19 bucks an hour. It might be, her first job, and she's all energetic and gung-ho and really wants to do a great job. And you are sending her almost no possible way of succeeding, because that snowball that she began working on is never going to get smaller. It will only get larger. Meanwhile, your first hygienist is nice and busy. Your second hygienist is struggling. Both hygienists start to get more openings in their day, and everybody stares at Heather as if it's her fault. It's not Heather's fault. Nobody in the world could possibly do her task. She's following up with people who they're just not going to comply to your recare. Only offices just keep churning these people. Now, here's the other enormous caveat that gets added to this. It exacerbates it and accelerates the insanity. If you take everything I just said and then you add in marketing, advertising that uses price incentives as a reason for the person to pick up the phone, 70%, you'll never get close to 70% compliance with those types of patients. Those types of patients responded to your offer. Guess what offer they're going to respond to next time? Those patients are far, far less compliant to recare than a good, solid, good quality new patient who came into your practice for some other reason beside a price incentive. So now we have Heather working on, at best, 1,200 accounts. If you add to that the fact that the office uses price incentives mainly to promote dentistry, and you bring in patients who really, their whole value point with dentistry is price. There's really no other value. There's no other decision making on their part. Guess what's going to happen to your recare compliance on the back end there? All right, now let's recap. Here's the scenario. Dr. Smith has this practice. Hygienist 1 doing good, but has a bunch of openings. Hygienist 2 slow, also has openings. Heather, almost a full-time position, running, chasing after 1,200 people or more, and you know it's going to grow. And if Dr. Smith promotes based primarily on price, you know it's not 1,200, you know it's like 2,800. Okay, it's physically impossible for Heather to call, communicate with, whatever, with 2,800. It's impossible. She's never going to be able to catch up. So meanwhile, what happens is that the doctor goes to the hygienist and says, hey, how come you have so many openings? The hygienist says, well, go talk to Heather, because that's what they do. And then the doctor goes to Heather and says, Heather, what's going on? When you came in, you know, you were keeping up, but now look at all the openings in hygiene. And Heather, the otherwise great employee, just kind of throws her hands up in the air and goes, geez, doc, I don't know. I don't know what's going on. The doc gets disillusioned with Heather and fires Heather. None of this was Heather's fault. The whole thing was set up at the very beginning by the dentist. The dentist said, I'm going to pre-appoint everybody. And the reason I'm going to pre-appoint everybody is because, I don't know, my friend doesn't. Or some management consultant said I should. And what I'm telling you, what Howie's telling you, what everyone on this end of the earth, anyone who's ever looked at data from dental offices will tell you that if you pre-appoint 100% of your recare patients, this scenario that I just laid out for you is inevitable. You will not be the first person to skip it.
You know, Mark,
won't.
It seems just correct, right? I mean, the patient is leaving. Of course, you want to get their name in the book. Yeah, I think that dentists think that commits them, and so they feel good about that commitment for future income. But of course, it doesn't commit anybody,
No,
does it?
no, it doesn't commit anything. And now the audience is probably saying, well, if we don't pre-appoint, what do we do?
Yeah.
Okay.
Good question.
Okay, that's a great question. Okay, here's what you do. Okay. You reward your great patients and you let them pre-appoint and you make it a perk. Because Mrs. Jones, I see that you made this appointment and you kept it on the day and time that you originally made it. So, you know what we're going to do this time? We're going to let you go out 6 months from now and select the best day and time for you to schedule the next appointment. Those are your A patients. Of course, you pre-appoint those. But anyone who disappoints off and comes out of the A category goes into the B category. You don't pre-appoint Bs. They just rescheduled. Why would you look at it this way? If you were an airline and I booked a seat on one of your flights and I called you an hour before the flight and said, oh, dude, I can't make it. Would you automatically just take another seat on a different flight? For me, would you just take my money and just or my need for a flight and just automatically apply it to a different flight if you were an airline? Of course you wouldn't. And there's a real good business reason why. Because I just disappointed. Okay. What you should do is take my money. That's what you should do. Okay. But no, here's what you do. A patients, absolutely pre-appoint all of them. B patients, you have to go back to doing what you were doing before. Mary, I see that we had to reschedule you this time. That's fine. I know things happen. Life gets busy. Here's what we're going to do. About 3 weeks before you're due for your next exam and cleaning and professional teeth cleaning, here's what we're going to do. We're going to send you a postcard and we're going to send you a text. It's going to come from Heather. And when you get those, give us a call and let us know the best day and time for you, and we'll see if we have any openings for you. Okay, that's what you do with your B patients. Now, Your B patients are they're either going to move back to A. In other words, if they actually keep their next appointment when they scheduled it, at that appointment, the hygienist can go, look, I see you made your appointment. You kept it at the original time. That means I can have you reserve your best day and your best time at your convenience 6 months from now. You make them an A patient again. But if that B patient makes an appointment and then breaks it and reschedules it, they go down to C. C is, we're going to send you a card, and if you're available, give us a call. And when they call, you're not going to offer a C patient the 6 p.m. hygiene appointment on a Tuesday. You're just not. You're going to offer them the 3 p.m. on a weekday. Some appointment that's really difficult for you to fill, but your A and B patients are going to get those premium slots. Okay, now, here's what's going to happen. If you do it that way and you only pre-appoint your A's, you're really only going to pre-appoint about 35-40% of your patient base. And I know that's going to make you feel bad temporarily, but what it's going to do is it's going to give you a really good look at an accurate schedule. Your schedule is now real. It's not a fantasy. So you can hire producers, hygienists, based on reality, not a fantasy. You can hire a hygiene coordinator based on reality and not a fantasy. And what'll happen, here's what ultimately what happens, is the doctor's overhead goes down because obviously they're not paying for too many hygienists to fill the actual time. And the administrative overhead actually goes down because a lot of those functions with the B and C patients are automated. You're not gonna sit there and call C patients for the rest of your life. You inactivate them. There's no reason to call them. They've already proven to you the type of patient they are. Now, again, the king of this, the top of the pyramid, is if the patient or if the office is what promotion they're using to generate new patients. What type of patients are you bringing into your practice? Remember Groupon, Howie?
Oh yeah.
Remember all the dentists and how crazy they were for Groupon? Remember that?
Yeah.
Right? Here's how it works. You put up a deal, and however many people that get the deal, you give them like 50% of that money. And then the patients come in and, maybe we'll see them again at some other point. Well, come on.
That's like advertising for C patients.
Yeah,
You,
come on. I mean,
we don't hear much about Groupon these
of
days,
course
do
we don't
we?
hear anything of it. And who was the one on the dental forums who was saying, "Are really seriously?
Yeah.
Like, don't do it, guys. Don't do it, and gals, don't do it." Okay, but they did it anyway. And then you hear the success story. I got 1,000 patients, and then you know what? 6-9 months later, oh, my hygiene schedule is blown out. Well, of course your hygiene schedule is blown out because you bought in 1,000 shoppers, you pre-appointed them for 6 and 7 months later, and now none of them are coming in. And you probably hired 2 or 3 hygienists to cover the time because it looks so nice in your schedule. Doesn't make any sense. So here's the bottom line. The bottom line is your recare percentage, your recare compliance, your administrative overhead to manage recare, your missed appointments and your daily number of missed appointments, and your hygiene profitability is going to be dictated by really 2 things. 1, not pre-appointing everybody, and 2, bringing in higher quality new patients who actually comply to recare. So that's my rant. I hope I didn't offend anyone today.
Oh, you probably did.
I probably did, and
And that's okay.
it's not my intent to do that. I I don't communicate this from an angle. Like I'm not a, I, you just nobody, there's not enough money in the world for anyone to pay me to consult as a dental consultant anymore. Okay. So I don't have an angle. So I give you this information and say, people, look at what you're doing to yourselves. It's not even somebody else doing it to you. Okay. You're doing it to yourselves. And there's nothing I hate worse than avoidable stupidity. Okay. So it's just insane. It's totally insane. And it's nothing that there's no other, maybe a hairdresser. Like, I don't know. I go and I get my hair cut and they make me a pseudo appointment, 8 weeks from after I get my hair cut. But they constantly have to follow up with me. Maybe that's another industry that might pre-appoint, but I don't know any other industry that pre-appoints and believes it makes any sense.
Right. Well, thank you, Mark.
You're welcome. I hope
that
I
was
didn't.
very
I hope I didn't
educational.
make. I didn't make any enemies from this. I hope I made some friends.
Oh, I don't think so.
All right.
Anyway, that'll be it for today, my friends, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Have fun.
We hope you've enjoyed our podcast today. You can find more podcasts on our YouTube channel, on Stitcher, and iTunes. Also on our websites dentalwebcontent.com and newpatientsinc.com.